All right, guys. So Jeff Goes Global here, Jefferson Batista. This is the first time I'm interviewing someone from another country. And you guys will see a series of interviews that I will make with my friends from many countries of this beautiful world. And our first guest today is a guy from Philadelphia, the United States, Dan Powers. Welcome, Dan.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's lovely to speak to somebody from Sao Paulo. So nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, to start, then, tell me about yourself. Who are you? Who is Dan? Where do you live? What are your hobbies? Give us information about you.
Okay, so thank you for that. Well, my name is Dan Powers, and I am living in York, Pennsylvania, in the United States. And the geographical area of York, York was actually the first capital of the United States, or makes that claim, and that the Articles of Confederation were signed here. So it's got some historical significance. It's a very old, by US standards, an old city. But I was born, as you mentioned, Philadelphia. That's my hometown. That's where I was born. And I actually live and work here in New York, and I work for a German pharmaceutical company that's based out of Ingelheim, Germany. So my things that I like to do, my hobbies, and I know that Jeff, just from us being friends, knows some of my hobbies. I love to swim. I love to cycle. I have a rail trail. We have these things called rail trails where they're throughout the United States. They've taken old railroad tracks that aren't being used anymore, and they've turned them into bike and walking trails and hiking trails. And they tend to be in very beautiful areas of the country. They go over rivers and streams and through forests and lakes and over mountains. So it's nice. It's very healthy. You can do good cardio. And I'm also a singer. I've sung with some very high level choral groups here in the United States. So I enjoy choral singing. And I'm a man of faith. So I belong to a Christian church, a United Church of Christ. And that's another thing that I do here in York. I support and worship there. And as I said, I work in pharma. So my life revolves around working. My hobbies, I am married, and I've been married for 40 years. I have a daughter. She's 29 years old. Actually, she's 29 on Monday. So I shouldn't make her older than she is, but
Wow.
she'll be 29 on Monday. So um,
Congratulations.
yeah, it'll be great for her to have a nice little party together. And other things that I like to do, I mean, I enjoy classic cars. I do like classical music. I like Broadway theater. We live just a few hours from Washington, D.C. and New York City. So you may find me and my wife and friends up in New York going to see a show or possibly see an opera. I'm an opera fan. I also like rock music. So my musical spectrum is very wide. So you may find me at a concert. So those are the things that I like to do when I'm not working.
Wow, that's amazing. A lot of activities. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's nice to know about it. I really want to meet you someday, and I really want to visit Philadelphia. I've been in the United States some years ago in 2018. It was my first trip solo outside of Brazil, and
Uh-huh.
it was beautiful. I visited New York City, and after I took a bus and I went down to Washington D.C. So probably I think we passed through Philadelphia.
You did. Yes. If you were on a bus from New York to DC, like I said, my city is on the megalopolis of New York, Philadelphia, and Washington. So we're right on the edge of that megalopolis of those big cities. And if you went from New York to DC, you either skirted right past or you went through the metro area of Philadelphia. Yeah.
Talking about the United States, what are at least tell me then, three things you like the most about the United States?
You know, being born here and raised here, and my travel's been limited outside of the United States. So my perspective is from living in this part of the country. I live in what's called the Mid-Atlantic area of the country. But what I do, three things that I love about the United States probably is the diversity of demographics, the diversity of the geographics. If you look at the between mountains and valleys, deserts, rivers, forests, plains, hot, cold, snow, snow, and you know, it's got all snow and rain. The United States is very, very, very diverse, and those are two of the things. Probably one of the third things I like about the United States or love about the United States is the fact that we tend to be very optimistic people. We tend to be people that are always looking ahead. We're always looking forward. We tend to be, as a communities, we tend to think of things as if we're going through rough times, we tend to think of that they're going to get better. And so those are the three things I think of about that I like about living here.
That's amazing, especially the third one you told me about you Americans. You all always try to see the best part of life, try to throw in life. This is amazing. And we see in the university that the majority of the books and philosophies about leadership, motivation, they were written by Americans.
Mhm.
So it's amazing. It's really,
Mhm.
really great.
Yeah.
And you Americans, you have a big history of victories, of passing through suffering. So you guys know how to live under pressure. So this is interesting.
Yes, and it's something that I appreciate, and it's a constant form of appreciation because we're always changing.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. On the other hand, then, what are the three things that maybe you don't like so much about the United
yeah,
States?
yeah. And that's probably a little bit more complicated in some ways. I think in many ways the United States, it's an area where it can be somewhat insular. There are people that live where I live that have never left this area. So the sad part about it is they don't experience other cultures. They don't experience other ways of life. Some people they're limited even in which they what they may see on television, so they can't see that outside world. And that's for a person like me that's very curious. I find that unfortunate, but that's probably one thing. Another thing that I personally don't like is I like that I live in an area where there's four seasons, but there are areas of the country that don't experience that. So I probably tends to like areas that are more diverse in weather too. I do like that. Um, I think another thing that I probably don't like as much our transportation system. I think that whenever you go to Europe, other places in the world, maybe in the Far East, you'll find that um, the transportation systems of getting around are much better than here in the United States. And excuse me.
No problem.
A third thing is probably the fact that I think that people here, you may find that they're not as maybe there. I mentioned something a little bit earlier about open to cultures. So we tend to be a little bit more in our silos, and I would say in color silos, so to speak. If you've not been to the United States, you might find that we tend to still live in areas that are racially and culturally divided. And you'll see more mixing, but not as much. We tend to live in our areas and tend to stay more so in those areas. So those are things I'd like to see that improve. I'd like to see people become more encouraging and excited about diversity, because I've seen places where there is more diversity that it's just a great place. You get a great vibe. And so those are the three things that I probably feel strongly about.
So talking about diversity, so I believe it is still common nowadays, even in 2022, that some people, like white people, may not marry with black people because they have that
Yes.
mentality. Oh, we should not mix it up with other races. Is
Yeah.
it still visible nowadays in the United States? Is it still common?
Well, it's probably common, not as much. I mean, in my lifetime, there were laws in this country that forbid people of color to marry white people. So I remember that. Younger people wouldn't necessarily even know that now, and you're seeing more couples represented of different races, of different cultures, more so than ever. But there's still problems. I mean, you may find somebody could walk up to a couple of mixed, a white and a black couple, and somebody may tell them that that's wrong. Like they have a right to say that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but you're seeing less of that, Jeff, which is a good thing. But you still hear of it, and hopefully someday, within my lifetime too, someday that will be gone.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so because without that, we will live much better. You know, we
Yeah,
are all the same human race, so we
that's right.
should not have prejudices at all. That's not healthy for us.
It's not healthy. It's not a positive thing. And, I just think that inclusion is always better than exclusion.
Exactly. Exactly. Together, we can conquer more, create
Yeah.
more. We can gather our creativity and
Yeah.
build a better world together.
Yeah, I agree. Totally, Jeff.
You have a lot of states, 50 states. Here in
Yeah.
Brazil, we have 27, and for me,
Uh-huh.
it's already a lot. So
Uh-huh.
imagine 50. So, talking about states, what are your favorite states, and what are your least favorite states, and why then?
Okay, that's a great question, Jeff. And it's something that you think about it. Now, I will qualify myself by saying, even though there are 50 states here, I've not been to all 50 states. I have flown over a lot of them, and I have been to a lot of states, but I've not been to all 50. So I still have more exploring to do, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, my favorite states to go visit, and for different reasons, of course, I like New York. I love to go to New York State and New York City. New York State is also there's lots of things to do in different ways. Topographically, it's very different because you've got mountains in the west and north, and then you've got farm country in the center, and you've got New York City, which is very vibrant and exciting and multicultural and multi-ethnic, multi-religious. You've got all different kinds of music and food and restaurants. It's just a great place to go. But I also love to go to Florida. Now, you know that.
Yeah.
But the people that will see this wouldn't necessarily know that. And I like Florida for a couple of reasons. I like the beaches there because I like beaches. Disney World is there, which we frequent a lot over our lifetime because there's lots of things to do at Walt Disney World. So they claim to be the happiest place on earth. And I would say that whenever I go there, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah.
So I like that. Well, to put it down to 3 states is difficult. Because there are other states that I like in the West. I'm naming states that are kind of along the East Coast, which I tend to frequent the most. But I also, if you would go west, I love California. California for the same reason. You've got wine country, you've got Los Angeles with all of its celebrity vibe, beautiful beaches. The weather is nice pretty much year round. There's a song that the lyrics say it never rains in Southern California, and it's
Wow.
true. So I love the weather there. And then if you get to Northern California, again, I mentioned wine country, but you also have San Francisco, and San Francisco is also very multi-ethnic. The restaurants are fantastic. It's just a beautiful place with the Golden Gate Bridge. You've got lots of different cultures and things to do in the north and the south over there. So California, Florida, and New York, but there are many other in between. I
Yeah,
would say
I
that.
can imagine. Yeah. And the least favorite ones, maybe, oh, I don't like this state because it's too hot, or I don't like the food from this place.
Yeah, no, that's another hard one because, as I mentioned, because of the sheer diversity across the United States, and I'm sure it's that way in Brazil. You can go to different states and there's different cultures as far as food is concerned. And toward the south, it's more fried foods and fried chickens and chitlins and collard greens and really yummy what we call soul food.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but that's a term that comes from the African American culture. And they bring different foods to the table, and it's usually sumptuous, and it's usually fried, and it's usually so delicious. And then if but countries that are cities that are, I'm sorry, states that would be
Yeah.
my least favorite.
Uh-huh.
Probably that's a really hard one. I'm going to get myself in trouble with some of your.
Yeah, you don't you if you don't need to choose. You don't need to.
That's right.
Yeah,
But
don't worry.
I would say probably Texas is probably one of my least favorite states. Even though it's very diverse, it's pretty hot down there and it's more dry. So that even though the climate's nice depending on the time of year, but it probably that's one. Another one might be oh gosh, it's really hard because I love all of the states, but I'll say another one probably is Ohio.
Ohio? Why?
Ohio is
Why Ohio?
to me, Ohio's kind of a boring state. It's
Okay.
relatively flat. I'll say the same, Indiana. It's just a flat state. Um, even though I've been to Indianapolis. I actually worked there for a little while. Indianapolis is a nice city. Surrounding it, it's just plain out flat. I'm used to some hills and I'm used to mountains, and I like beaches, which aren't far away for me to get to. So those usually, and again, Ohio, it's kind of a flat. It's green, and it's got four seasons, but I've never really had too many reasons to want to go to Ohio or Indianapolis for that matter.
What about Alaska? What do you Americans think about Alaska? I don't think you have a lot of connections there because it looks
Yeah.
like a so remote place.
Yes, actually, that's another great question. I have a cousin who was a park ranger. He's retired. Denali was his park that he was the administrator for. So my cousin lived there for a lot of his adult life once he became a park ranger. But to get back to your original question, Alaska is so far away, but it's wild. It's wild in a good way. I mean, it's very, as far as wildlife is concerned, as far as the changes in the weather, which tend to be extreme. I've known lots of people that have visited there. They do the cruise. You can cruise along the coast, and then you can fly to the North Pole, and then you get out and everybody stands on the North Pole. I mean, that's really cool. But that most Americans haven't been to Alaska, but it's one of those places that I think a lot of Americans would like to go.
Yeah, I believe because it has a lot of nature, a lot of animals. So yeah,
Have
it's
you been
really
there? You've not been there? Is that on your bucket list?
it is. It is. One of my dreams one day in my life is to visit all 50 states
Ah,
because since child, I've been seeing a lot of American movies,
yeah.
also American cartoons. So
Hmm.
I'd like to see it with my eyes, and I'd like
Yeah.
to feel the differences between all the places and feel the culture in Texas, feel the culture in California, in Louisiana, because I know it's different.
Oh, I've been to Louisiana.
So
That's another nice state. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And also Hawaii, Alaska, it's amazing.
Hawaii's on my bucket list too. That's another place that's very far away, exotic and beautiful. I had a brother that was stationed there when he was in the Marines, and he loved it.
So now let's go to another type of question. How
Sure.
is nowadays then the situation of work in the United States. Do you have a lot of open vacancies, a lot of jobs? People are getting into the jobs, or is it
Yeah.
difficult because of the this currently world problem we are living nowadays?
Yeah. It's an interesting question because we have perceptions, but about employment in the United States. But for the most part, there are more jobs than there are people right now. And so most of the jobs are in the service sectors. So in food and restaurants and places where people are helping other people as far as work is concerned. But there are lots of other professional jobs that are opening up, especially as people are retiring. I understand, and you probably understand that there was we've limited, and because of the pandemic too, the amount of people coming into the country has been very limited, and as a result of that, there are jobs that people that were immigrating into the country were doing that aren't they're not filled now, and so it's a cascade that has occurred that we have shortages because of not enough workers. And even last night I went to a restaurant, and the restaurant had limited seating, not because of the pandemic, but because they don't have enough servers. So that's really one of the things that's happening here is there are more jobs right now available for people. There really are more.
Interesting. Yeah. For those people who are unemployed in the United
Uh,
States right now, does the government help somehow with some unemployment insurance or some aid?
yeah. There is unemployment insurance. I think there are certain requirements that have to be met, like you have to be laid off from a job or fired from a job to collect unemployment. If you quit a job, you can't collect unemployment. So there's no government assistance as far as that's concerned. There is government assistance for people that can't work. It's called Medicaid, which assists people. You have to be below a certain income level to qualify for that money to be given to you by the government. And then, of course, there are things like food stamps. The Medicaid also is a health plan that covers people that otherwise can't afford insurances. So the government does have a limited amount that they'll assist people with, but it's not like it's socialistic, like they're helping everyone out so
I
much.
got it. Yeah, I see. So let's make a comparison between Brazil and
Yes.
in the United States
Mhm.
regarding the job environment. So
Yes.
here in Brazil, in comparison to the States, our salaries are lower. So for that reason, the law obligates the companies to give a lot of social benefits to employees. So companies here, they are obligated to pay your transportation, so your
Ah,
public
mhm.
transportation. So if you go by train, by bus,
Yeah.
by subway, the company has to must to give you this money. Some companies discount a little bit from your salary, like I think
Mhm.
6%. But
Mhm.
even discounting, it's still a benefit for you. And also companies here, or they have a place inside the company where they offer meals for employees,
Mhm.
or for offices where people work with management activities. Normally the companies give us a card, and with this card we have an amount of money where we can go to restaurants, where we can go to bakeries and have lunch. Apart from that, some companies also here in Brazil pay us a private health insurance. So with this health insurance, we can go to the doctor, to the dentist, we can have surgeries, and like almost everything for free. Some companies discount a percentage from your salary, but others give you that for free. So
Yeah.
I believe basically this is our basic package of benefits here in Brazil. Because if we didn't have that with our all money, with our all salary, we couldn't afford these benefits. What
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
in the United States? In general, do the companies give employees these same benefits as we have in Brazil, or with your salaries, you guys can afford these benefits?
Yes, it's a system that's completely different from your system, totally different. Here, it's much more going to be salary based, and with your salary, then you pay for your transportation, and you pay for your lunch, and you. So that's why you mentioned higher salaries in general here. We tend to have higher salaries, and I guess the idea is to be able to help people cover those expenses. As far as health insurance, that's going to be different by the different employers can maybe offer collective insurances to their employees, but that doesn't always, not all, we're not mandated, companies are not mandated, but that tends to be part of an attractive benefits package. If a company can offer those, what the thinking is, they'll attract the best workers, the best people to their company, so that they offer those kinds of employee benefits. But even then, it's going to be different from company to company. Some companies will negotiate, bigger companies will negotiate a really nice health package with an insurance company that will pay for your hospitalization and pay for your medicine, and well, not pay for it, but reduce the cost of your medicine and reduce the cost of your doctor's appointments. You may have a copay when you go to the doctor versus paying the whole amount. So that's how it's different. But again, going back to your original question, it's always the employers are the ones that trying to be competitive, because company A and company B, well, they want to compete to get the best workers. So that's where they will try to get the best benefits packages for their patients. I mean, for their workers. And then that way, the hope is that they'll get the best people there. But that's how the system is much more independent here than in Brazil. And there's no government mandate for companies here.
That's interesting. And talking
Yeah.
about health, the health system, here we have a universal public health system. So no
Yeah.
matter if you are very poor, you live on the streets, or you are a millionaire, if you
Yeah.
broke your leg and has an injury on the street, you can go
Yeah.
to a public hospital. We have in almost all the cities or public clinics, and they will treat you for free. So yeah, it can be a small injury and even a severe sicknesses such as cancer. We have
Mhm.
very good hospitals where the treatment is 100% for free. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of problems in this system. Actually, we do. We don't have enough doctors. We don't pay our doctors very well. Sometimes we don't have the necessary equipment, the necessary medicines. But at
Yeah.
least we have it. It's a good model. What about in the United States for like people that doesn't have money? How they can afford their going to the hospital, for example?
Yes. Yeah, and that's where, as I was mentioning earlier, there's a group called Medicaid. So you have to qualify by having a certain, like a poor person that has a low salary. There's a income level that has to be met. But if that's met, then they pretty much get free health care. They get free hospitalization. Now their health care is limited to certain providers, certain doctors, certain hospital systems that will accept Medicaid, but that's how that works. So they do. So in this country, the poor do have medical coverage, even though I understand it's pretty good, even though it still can be limited to where they have to go to get medical treatment. So having said that, I mean, the United States at least has the reputation as one of the best medical systems in the world. And so, but again, it's very somewhat fractured and tiered, so to speak, for the very wealthy. Because what will happen is the very wealthy have insurance, but they can afford to pay above that. So chances are, even in the United States, even though a poor person is going to get great care, a person that's wealthy is going to get the best care. And then people in the middle are going to get great care too, but they're not necessarily going to get the best of everything. So that's the reality.
That's interesting. I know that President Barack Obama reinforced the medical care, right? This
Yes.
program. But
Mhm.
before him, did you already have this kind of program, or it was new with Barack
Well,
Obama?
yeah, before him, people were paying, I honestly don't know what the history was like before then because I was young,
Uh-huh.
young enough
Yeah.
to not be aware.
Uh-huh.
But I do know that people from even when I was young, if they were poor, they could get care. It just meant that they had to go to a certain hospital and a certain doctor. But I know that when Obama was president, he expanded that lower group, well, expanded the care that they could get so that their care was actually better. So he improved their qualities of their lives by giving them expanded, better health care. I do know
That's
that.
that's
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
we only have 5 minutes. I
Okay.
thought
Yeah.
our meeting would be longer, but I don't know. I think I still have to upgrade to Zoom Pro to have unlimited time. Anyway,
Okay. Okay.
let's make you a final question. So
Okay.
this
Okay.
will be a little funny. There are a lot of great movies, a lot of great sitcom series in the
Uh-huh.
United States. You are pro. How about it? You guys know how to record a lot of nice stuff. And I watched some series, some episodes, some episodes of the Walking Dead, and also Fear the Walking Dead, and I
Yeah.
loved this series.
Uh-huh.
So when I see your photos, when I see your videos, I always relate you and your place with the series. I also imagine a zombie apocalypse happening
That's
where you
great.
are.
I love
So
it.
if it happened
Uh-huh.
where you live, what would you do? Have you ever thought about it? Where would you go? What would you do then?
Well, that's a fun question, and I love it. I would say that from me cycling, I
Yes.
probably would get on my bike and ride as fast as I could.
Uh-huh. Yes.
But the beauty is now I live in a somewhat rural area. So I can get away from people pretty quickly and
Oh.
get out into the fields and the mountains and away from, so the zombies would have to chase me across fields and past cows and horses and
Uh-huh.
everything else. So I would probably stay away from the cities if a zombie apocalypse happened.
Great.
But just the thought of it happening, and I've seen some of the movies about that too. It's kind of when you're in an urban center like Sao Paulo,
Yeah,
you've
exactly.
got multi-millions of people that if they were all zombies, you might as well just join them. That's all I would say. Just go ahead and bite me and I'll join.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah, but
So
that's what I,
then,
yes,
that's it. That's the end of our interview. So I
yes,
thank
Jeff,
you very much for
you're
your
welcome.
participation. Do you wanna say anything to finalize our recording?
Sure. First of all, I want to say thank you for the opportunity, Jeff, to sit down with you. I consider you such a good friend. I'm so happy for our connection. So thank you for that. I want to also, at least to the people that will listen and hear what I have to say, I hope maybe I've been insightful and helpful. And really, your questions were really great to help me do that. So I'll just say thank you for your friendship. I value you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun. It's always great talking to you, whether it's here or on one of the other platforms that we speak on. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you a lot. I really appreciate your participation, your cooperation. And what's your Instagram? Are you put here so may the people can contact you and follow you?
Well, it's Dan P 1958. So D as in David, A-N, the letter P as in Paul, and then 1958.
Perfect.
Uh, That's it.
Very good. That's it. So I wish you a great Saturday then. Let's keep in touch.
Yes, thank you. Gracias. Thank you
De
very much.
nada.
Yeah,
Boa
de nada, de
noite.
nada.
Bye
Yeah,
bye.
bye-bye. Take care.